Indians know where they come from. The Chinese know where they come from. The Irish know where they come from. The only people who do not know where they come from are black people. And African Union has taken ownership of that. I think the reason it hasn't been done is because of the fragmentation. 55 countries, who's going to call them home? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the African Union this year, during the February summit, they unanimously decided that 2019, 400 years of slavery, it is time to officially call on all children, descendants of former slaves, to come back home. And let me make this very clear. By saying let's go home, we are not meaning to physically go home. We are saying know that Africa is home. And that if you want to go, you're welcome to go anytime. Yes. Where we have issues as black people is that we are busy denying our anchor. We have been told our anchor is a horrible place. Diseased people, dying people, people at war with themselves, far from the truth. And it was all by design, yes, to keep us disconnected. Yes. Because when we reconnect, we have an anchor. Yes. Black people around the globe, they need to know that Africa is home. Amen. And that Africa is ready for you, yes, whenever you want it. That Africa, it is your home, that you should be in the front of the line, yes, for everything African. Your Africa is getting ready to open up big time. Yes. Bigger than you can even imagine. Yes. For the first time, they had a meeting last week in Nairobi. The former Prime Minister of Kenya, Raila Odinga, he is now the special envoy for infrastructure and development in Africa. Because we now have the 22 ratifications, implementation of the Continental Free Trade Area is going to start sometime this summer. So that means we need to come up with a strategic plan for the development of the continent for the first time. Not the individual countries. Right. This has never been done before. Yes. So they're wanting a core group from the diaspora. So that way, all the opportunities, they will go to the diaspora and the Afro-champions first. We get to pick what we want. If there's anything left that we can handle, but I doubt there will be. But they're saying, we have got to look at Africa first. Africa and its children first. So they said, Ambassador, get the diaspora organized.
This is so exciting that we can go home. Yes. And when we can tell our children where home
is. Why are we black people the most disrespected race on earth? I wonder, was there a memo that was sent out around the globe that wherever you see black people and you are not black, you are automatically superior? See, we are being told our continent is a continent of diseased and dying people, all by design. We're being told we are inferior to others, all by design. They got together so they can organize themselves, so they can see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. So they chopped us up into the tiny little countries that we know today. It was done in a way to see to it that these little economies can never survive on their own. And should they manage to survive like us, we always do, we'll make it somehow. We are easy to destabilize. We were set up to lose. Berlin Conference left us on a losing lane. And until Africa is in the right lane, no conversation that's held while in the losing lane is going to bring the desired results. It's like changing seats while riding the Titanic. It's like winning a fight while riding the Titanic. This ship is going down, folks. And the sooner we realize that there are holes in the Titanic and that we should come together and fix the holes in the Titanic so the Titanic does not sink, we're all going down. And this is where we are, my brothers and sisters. This ship that is our Africa is sinking. And it's going to take all of us waking up and realize that we have a responsibility to do something about what's going on in our Africa. Because what is going on in our Africa reflects on who we are. Africa! The onus is on us to say enough is enough. That we know who we are. We know where we come from. And that we refuse to leave this world the way it is for our children. That the real battle for us is right here. The shackles of the mind. Until we can free ourselves, until we can have a serious conversation with the image in the mirror and ask ourselves the very important question, am I colonized? Am I suffering from the legacy of slavery? Why do I think the way I do? Why can't I trust my brother? Why can't I trust my sister? That is where the battle is. So the question I have for all of you, are you ready to have that conversation?
We are calling on everybody to think Africa, act Africa, and prosper Africa.
It comes down to the change of mindset.
I think this is an opportunity which Africa should not miss.
We are implementing the Africa we want.
A lot of the countries understand that this is good for them, that it is a game changer.
This is an historic moment for our continent.
So this is entirely African driven. These African countries are making a treaty among themselves.
We've been brought up with so many borders. You know, we have our little countries, we have our little economies, our little sectors. We have so many things that divide us, and I think this is an opportunity to really push against those boundaries and to change them.
As the old adage goes, there is strength in unity. For the 55 African Union member states, that strength lies in numbers. With a population of 1.2 billion and a GDP of $2.5 trillion, the prospect and now realization of a continental free trade area for Africa promises to usher in a new era of industrialization and business opportunities towards the realization of Agenda 2063, the Africa we want.
It has been a long journey, difficult and long, but we had visionaries. When we created the Organization of African Unit in 1963, President Nkrumah of Ghana made a clarion call: Africa must unite. In June 2015, the heads of state and government had an assembly in Johannesburg, and they adopted the principles for negotiations, the roadmap, as well as the institutions. And we had several rounds of negotiations. Then the regional communities came in to give technical inputs with other strategic partners, namely the African Development Bank, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. And the initial good results were established in December 2017. Then in January, we gave the report to the heads of state and government, and they were very impressed. They say the remaining work can be done in a short time, so let's have a signing ceremony on 21st March 2018 in Kigali. And we were able to produce the consolidated text that was signed today. It's composed of the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area and the protocol on trade in goods, the protocol on trade in services, and the protocol on the settlement of disputes. And this is where we are.
The African Continental Free Trade Area will affect the development of African countries by boosting employment opportunities, increasing food security, increasing competitiveness of African industrial products, and enhancing participation of the continent in global trade.
For us, the African Continental Free Trade Area, of course, it's a flagship project of Agenda 2063, but more than that, it's an instrument for solidarity, and it's an instrument for connection between African people and basically dismantling the borders and the barriers that are there, because there are great opportunities for goods to move more efficiently, for services, as well as people. So I think that for us, it's a very important lever for achieving multiple objectives.
Well, what got us here is increasing realization that everywhere neighbors trade with neighbors. This is normal. What has been an anomaly for this continent is that since the 15th century, our trade has been directed primarily outside the continent. And that has to do with the way that Africa was inserted into the global economy. So this is what we are trying to reverse. So everything, our infrastructure has been built to support taking commodities from the interior to the ports and out to the north. So everything concerning trade has been organized around that external trade.
The CFTA negotiations have been complex, needing to take into consideration the individual interests of member states. Beyond the signing of the CFTA, individual countries will need to ratify the agreement.
There is supposed to be a process of ratification before the agreement can come into force. And for ratification, we need 22 member states to deposit their instruments of ratification, meaning that they have gone through their internal, local, national processes for accepting the documents. And then once we have 22 instruments of ratification, then that is when it now comes into force. The agreement that we are creating is not a mere declarative statement or a mere policy statement. It is actually a legal agreement that creates rights, obligations. So we think that at the end of the day, this is an agreement that will have some teeth. But I think beyond all that, there is a political commitment to see this done.
Intra-African trade is one of the lowest of any region globally. The impact of the CFTA will mean Africa's industrial exports are able to diversify, encouraging a move away from extractive commodities such as oil and minerals. Economic integration for the continent will further provide harmony of customs, borders, and the movement of goods.
What this initiative is all about is to say to ourselves, okay, let's create a legal framework, let's establish a treaty so that there is certainty, because in trade, your business person wants to know that those goods that are going across are not going to be seized or discriminated against in some way, that it will be a level playing field. And also our tariffs are relatively high, Over 6% is the average across the continent, to say we want to bring this down to zero, which is what they have agreed for 90% of products, and also to deal with non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers like your roadblocks, your anti-trade behavior along the border, harassment at the border.
The flagship project of Agenda 2063 promises to be the world's largest free trade area. But what are the practical implications of having the CFTA implemented? And how exactly would an agreement of this magnitude revolutionize business and movement across Africa?
My mother was a small-scale trader after retiring from her teaching profession. So from very practical terms, having seen people like my mother, small traders, this will facilitate their movement, because alongside the signing of the CFTA, there are also member states, 27 member states, signed on to the free movement protocol, movement of persons. So cutting the red tape, knowing predictable tax regimes, common external tariff barriers. This gives them assurance, it gives them predictability, and it also gives them a sense that they have protections that are continental.
The most interesting thing to know about this kind of legal agreement is that in certain ways it protects the little man the most. At the end of the day, for the small man, for the entrepreneur in Nigeria or some other country, the fact that there is a legal agreement that gives him rights as well as obligations actually makes it easier for that little or that young entrepreneur, that small SME company to take the right decisions, because you know that you are not going in on your own, you are going in with the entire legal framework of the African Union.
We have signaled to the world that we want to come together, and we do not want the Africans and the rest of the world to say the leaders made a grand celebration to sign the instruments, but they are not producing results. So we are focusing on tangible results, because this is what the ordinary Africans expect. And the business community is going to join us in the advocacy program. The parliamentarians are going to join us. The civil society organizations are also going on. So Africa at large is committed.
We have to basically galvanize all the stakeholders who are going to make this happen. It's not government that's going to trade. It's the private sector. It's the young entrepreneurs. It's the cross-border traders who are women, who are going to ask the question, who should be asking the question, so what does this mean for me? So implementation, I think, will be something that happens at different levels. It will be at the national level, where countries who are signatory to the agreement first of all engage stakeholders on how to go about this. And the other level is the regional level, because as we know, regional economic communities have been working with member states, you know, also in terms of the regional blocks, and so that's another level of implementation.
In addition to the overall contribution to achieving Agenda 2063 and Agenda 2030, the average person can expect some tangible benefits on the ground from the implementation of the CFTA. Practical benefits for businesses, consumers, and trade are also on the cards.
My business is just to make those dresses for ladies, to design ladies and men. I want to make the thing bigger. I want to be there with my people, about 100 people. To bring material, it's a problem of taxes. They charge us money. If they say that no taxes, in fact, my business will go further.
I'm selling clothes. I bought them from South Africa, Dar es Salaam, Nairobi. When I'm bringing my goods back, yeah, we have problems because they ask us to pay. But if you don't want to pay, they take your goods. When you don't have all the money, you bribe.
first thing will be lack of common standard between countries, between neighboring countries. Like certain laws apply in Uganda do not apply in Congo, and that ends up causing a lot of delays. I give you for example, I can send a product from here to Kigali, which is fine, but if I try to send it to my client in Congo, the costs and delays. That in terms of drivers have to have visas, the permit to drive in, insurance, and the law differ. Whatever they like, they can apply, and we have to obey by it. And that sometimes end up pushing the cost higher and also increasing delays. That means instead of truck doing 2 to 3 trips a month, you end up doing 1 trip. And then for you to accommodate those costs, you have to charge your customer high. Personally, I'm very happy to see something is being worked on this area because it's going to help us a lot in this sector.
The African Continental Free Trade Area represents a watershed for Africa in terms of trade and political relations. This seismic shift for the continent is all the more profound in the current global trend towards insular politics and isolationism. Africa's harmonization also represents the opportunity for boosting of intra-regional value chains and to attract a larger share of global investment portfolios.
Intra-African trade, minimal though it is, involves processed goods rather than raw commodities. So the point about increasing intra-African trade is that you find that African countries will need to apply more science and technology to production. So in addition to this, we are saying as a commission that it's important to emphasize education, because our aim is to have every African child in school between now and 2020. You have every African child in school, you have a numerate and a literate Africa with the cultural level raised. They can begin now to imbibe capital and leverage science and technology in production. So you find that more intra-African trade will occur, more processing will occur within the African continent.
The general populace have to be sensitized on what safety is, what it stands for, and what are the benefits. When that is achieved, what we call informal trade, cross-border trade, will not be informal anymore. Because all these borders, as far as trade is concerned, all these borders will become meaningless, will become fictitious. People will be free to move from one country to another. So this will take time. So I think at the beginning what needs to be done is the advocacy, public advocacy, to make sure that every single African, irrespective of their status, economic and social status, know what CFTA stands for, what are the benefits for him or her, when it becomes operational.
This platform will allow us to harmonize our different national policies, to regularize and harmonize so that we can trade amongst ourselves on the continent. We have a lot of challenges on food security. This will allow us to really, diversify our economy and really provide food in some affected countries by the climate change. For instance, we have some countries that are really highly affected by drought and all the hazard of the climate change. The region can easily facilitate the circulation of foods and animal protein from one country to another. I think it is a chance for us to really realize this inter-African trade.
While the CFTA is essentially an economic project, it is deeply entrenched in the aspirations found in Agenda 2063 and feeds directly into other aspirations for integration, such as the Single African Passport. Launched in 2016, the full implementation by member states of the Single African Passport would further enhance trade and movement of people across the continent. Other flagship projects, such as the Single African Air Transportation Market, also stand to benefit from the CFTA. The Single African Air Transportation Market primarily aims to increase connectivity across the continent by creating a single African sky and thus further enhancing economic integration.
The essence of the single African air transport market is to have a single African sky, like the one we see in Europe, like the one we see in Northern America. Airlines, formidable airlines, licensed airlines, should be able to move from one point to another, whether on a direct flight or whether on transit. The air transport market liberalization will make sure that now business is open to everybody. And we think with liberalization now, the airfares will go down. These are some of the issues the single African air transport market is geared to resolving. A single African sky, where every airline will be able to go anywhere, to fly passengers and goods anywhere in Africa.
While the benefits of the CFTA are undoubtedly revolutionary across the continent, the African Union recognizes that the implementation of Africa's most ambitious plan to date must have the buy-in and wholly be committed to by all member states, the regional economic communities, and ultimately by citizens themselves.
Welcome to the Great African Leadership Series, where we feature great inspirational speeches and quotes from African leaders.
Fellow freedom fighters, comrades and friends, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to Accra and to this conference of African freedom fighters and supporters of the growing movement for Africa's liberation and unity. It is good for our cause to have a periodic meeting of this kind to examine our position in the great struggle to rid Africa completely and forever of imperialism and its handmaidens, colonialism and neocolonialism. Africa is rich and not poor. As the great wealth that has been taken out of our continent over 5 centuries of spoliation and extortion very well proves. Africa has immense actual and potential wealth: gold, diamond, copper, manganese, bauxite, iron ore, uranium, asbestos, chrome, cobalt, a host of other minerals. Our essential agricultural produce have all been drained away by colonialist imperialism. Africa is far from being poor. It is Africans who are poor, not Africa. And they are poor because of the uncounted profit that has been made out of the exploitation of their labor and their lands. If we are being baited to enter a European community, we must have something that community needs, and needs badly, when it pretends to offer a bonus by way of aid. When Greeks come bearing grapes, should we not look them well in the mouth, if I may mix my metaphor? But I'm sure you get my meaning. I raise this point so that it will stay in your minds when you may be tempted by the seductive promises of new colonialism to forget the real character of colonialist imperialism and be persuaded away from your own true interests and those of Africa. For today, we must each see ourselves as part of Africa in order that we may face colonialist imperialism and its new form, neocolonialism, on a continent-wide front. For unity must be the keynote of our actions. Our enemies are many, and they stand ready to pounce upon and exploit our very weakness. They tell us that this particular person or that particular country has greater or more favorable potentialities than the other. They do not tell us that we should unite, that we are all as good as we are able to make ourselves once we are free. Remember, always, that you have 4 stages to make. First, the attainment of freedom and independence. Secondly, the consolidation of that freedom and independence. Thirdly, the creation of unity and community between the free African states. Fourth, the economic and social reconstruction of Africa. This requires some plain speaking. And for the sake of Africa, let us speak plainly. As I see it, our greatest danger stems from disunity and the inability to see that the realization of our hopes and aspirations, the realization of our objective of total African independence, and of our future progress and prosperity is inextricably bound up with the necessity to unify our policy and actions in connection with the continued struggle for independence and the greater task of economic and social reconstruction beyond it. We must therefore face the issue of African unity now, for only unity will make the artificial boundaries and regional demarcations imposed by colonialism obsolete and superfluous. African unity will thus provide an effective remedy for border disputes and internecine troubles. In a united Africa, there could be no frontier claims between Ethiopia and Somalia, or between Zanzibar and Kenya, Guinea or Liberia, or between Ghana, Togoland, and the Ivory Coast. Because we would regard ourselves as one great continental family of nations. Some of the leaders, it must be confessed, do not see the struggle of their brother Africans as part of their own struggle. Even if they did, they would not be free to express their solidarity. These rifts are consciously created by the imperialists between Africans, where they can sit back and watch with sly satisfaction, as well as contempt for those who fail to see how they are being used against Africa's best interests. Regrettably, those states include some who were among the freedom fighters of yesterday and who haven't won their independence, are willing to drop it for some token aid and thereby deny to those still struggling for freedom even their moral support. Here is a phenomenon against which all African freedom fighters must be on their guard and resist to the utmost. Even though I appreciate the difficulties facing us, I must admit I find it strange to watch some of us returning willingly to the colonialist fold. This time, they don't even have the excuse of being forced to subject themselves to foreign domination. It makes one wonder, why so much effort and sacrifice and so many lives were given up to the achievement of independence in the first place, if it can only be so quickly and easily surrendered. We must begin to build immediately our own continental common market. For it is easy for anyone who studies the common market organization closely to realize that the common market is aimed at harnessing the African countries to satisfy the profit lust of the imperialist bloc and to prevent us from following an independent neutralist policy. It is easy to see that the imperialists and the colonialists are determined to retain the African countries in the position of suppliers of cheap raw materials. If we do not resist this threat, and if we throw in our lot with the common market, we shall doom the economy of Africa to a state of perpetual subjection to the economy of Western Europe. This will, of course, hinder the industrialization of our young African states. It is impossible to think of economic development and national independence without possessing an unfettered capacity for maintaining a strong industrial power. The activities of the common market are therefore fraught with dangerous political and economic consequences for the independent African states. The organization constitutes an attempt to replace the old system of colonial exploitation by a new system of collective colonialism, which will be stronger and more dangerous than the old evils we are striving to liquidate from our continent. This is another reason why we should come together in a unified African economic plan, which, operating on a continental scale, can make a solid attack on the imperialist domination in Africa. We should, without delay, aim at the creation of a joint African military command. There is little wisdom in our present separate effort to build up and maintain defense forces, which, in any case, would be ineffective in a major world conflict. If we examine this problem realistically, we would ask, which single African state could protect itself against an imperialist aggressor? And how much more difficult this would be when some states are allowing the imperialists to maintain bases on their territories. I have already referred to the military forces which South Africa is raising and the danger it poses for the new African states and the struggle of those still in chains. Only our unity can provide us with anything like adequate protection. Those problems can best be met within a unified Africa, and it should be possible in the higher reaches of our endeavor to devise a constitutional structure which will secure the objectives I have outlined, and yet preserve the sovereignty of each of the countries joining the Union. Countries within the Union will naturally maintain their own constitutions, continue to use their own national emblems and national anthems and other symbols and paraphernalia of sovereignty. Regional associations and territorial groupings can only be other forms of balkanization unless they are conceived within the framework of a continental union. There are existing models which we can modify or adapt to our pattern. The United States of America, the Soviet Union, India and China have proved the efficacy of unions embracing large stretches of land and population. Long live African freedom fighters. Long live African independence. Long live your struggle. And long live African unity.
And share this video with friends and family to support the channel.
Janabi banale di dunya. Furate banamina jarabi. Janabi dolole di dunya. Nete se kato ye jarabi. Janabi banale di dunya. Furate banamina abada. So, this song is about love, I mentioned. Jarabi. I would like very much if you could join us on this song. We yo Jarabi. We yo Jarabi. We yo Jarabi. We yo Jarabi. For those that can do two things at the same time, to clap and sing. Yeah, or half. We yo Jarabi. 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 Thank you so much. Okay, this next song is entitled Mama Muso. kabila kinuje musukendo lebelo ringa kuma tunyale na kabilo barakata kende kele tumengi te musu ya bangu de bulo todo mido fudo jimmy amena samena fulbe bulo dimo mohala kafinande mo uchata munya madudache kaina ko
Thank you.
nimenyoka sewo sifana ningairera sewo sifana nimenyoka sewo sifana Tinkanole jane wata, temandandula jana, hala se ula jamo nyonte, ule mutena mariati, hala ni jele fumata, apokole kuliyonga ikanole, leila na na na, na ikanole, se wo sifana na ikanole, se wo sifana na ikanole, na 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 na, na ikanole. Okay, now I want us to join together, please, on this one. First, hands. saya Falatolo gazika Kopana yesa faye Halwaye ne don sena ne don tolola Dunia kono diabana Parisa ya ye dusukasi Fujonye sabali Hanayana ite solemania Nyele ne mankano Itolo malo le kumula le fe Nkan kumankan gela fuyo ye Mie dankan ye se kotala Hilema ye kodi ye kwelema Itale minkane to de biro Tusuka sini nana finjudo Ye minke ye do ye latero Aladoro de sarala Ntele ya lidu konitaye Fokan santena se ganyina ego Na legafa Jamana senama Dolo ye yelela Dolo ye kasila dolo Itana domine maso Itana ni vandufana ye Iye kumukamifu Alisambe miri olulazini Nekoni bekali yebi Fokansa ntenina iku Miye danka ye se kotala Ilema ye kodi anye kwelema Itale minkane to di biro Tusuka sini nana finjuro Iye minke ye dukonitaye Alorunde sarala Ila pela ye dukonitaye Fokansa antena siganina ego Oh saya Mama saya Oh saya Mama siene masaya wonder if I may be able to get you up for this. Really. This, as I said, is for the elders here tonight. I know all of you have someone that you would like to pay homage to, so this is for them. Yeah? Banaya lanayana, Banaya lanayana, Banaya lanayana, Banaya lanayana, Banaya lanayana, Banaya lanayana, Mansaya winimbana, Banaya lanayana, Banaya lanayana, Kanaya winimbana, Banaya lanayana, Banaya lanayana, Furuya winimbana, Banaya lanayana, Banaya lanayana, Banaya lanayana. guitar and percussion, please give it up. Maurice on the guitar. Andy McLean on bass. And this is the bit I always feel embarrassed about, but my CD is here. Pastia, if you're interested, please come here somewhere. Thank you so much. I hope to see you again sometime. Thank you. Yes.